Take the Leap is the podcast where we get real about the roller coaster that is entrepreneurship and life. Sure, some folks make running a business look like a walk in the park, but let's be honest, it's more like a wild ride through a theme park with a lot of unexpected twists and turns.
Join us, your co-hosts, Ashlyn
and Tori,
as we spill the beans on our own real-life experiences and shine a spotlight on some amazing guests. From the highs of success stories to the lows of epic failures. And hey, we'll even throw in some cringe-worthy, laugh-out-loud, embarrassing moments for good measure.
So buckle up and tune in every Tuesday and Thursday for a dose of raw, unfiltered truth about what it's really like to chase your dreams and build a business.
Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just dipping your toes into the startup world, we've got something for everyone. Even if it's just to make you think, wow, I'm glad I didn't do what they did. Welcome back, everyone, to the Take the Leap podcast. We're really excited for our guest today, Gresham, or Gresh W. Harkless Jr., the founder of Blue 16 Media, CB Nation, and Blue Star Franchise. Blue 16 Media uses media and technology to change lives. These media properties include Blue 16 Marketing, a digital marketing agency providing digital marketing services, including web design, website support, and SEO services. CB Nation consists of media properties, blogs, podcasts, and videos, helping the business community to succeed. Definitely check them out. Central to Blue 16's marketing philosophy is that you are a media company. Gresh started his first at the age of 10 in the form of a family paper that he sold, and that every organization in the media business can strategically leverage marketing tools, platforms, and ingredients to reach their goals. And then Blue Star Franchise helps connect first-time and seasoned entrepreneurs, CEOs, and business owners with their ideal franchises. Gresh is a proud graduate of Howard University and Georgetown University. He was selected in 2022 as a 50-plus Black marketer on the rise in the Influencer and Media Innovators category. He is also a graduate of the 2020 Leadership Center for Excellence Young Professionals Program. In 2016, he was recognized for being 40 under 40 in Northern Virginia in 2022 and a Alexandria in 2020. He has recorded over 1,600 podcast episodes of the I Am CEO podcast. You will also see a link of my episode on that podcast at some point, and has shared the 100-plus business lessons he has learned from recording the episodes in the I Am CEO Handbook, Volume 3. Whew, Gresh, that's a lot. That's a lot. But yeah, congratulations
I was
on
sweating
all
for you.
that you have accomplished. And it sounds like from a young time, you decided that entrepreneurship was for you. But I would love for you to describe kind of how you have taken the leap, or what have been the many leaps that you've taken into what you are doing now.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I truly appreciate it. And I'm very much so a busybody, and I've kind of always been that busybody. As much as I feel like I chose entrepreneurship, I think it kind of chose me. And that family newspaper story, is kind of like what I went back to. I always kind of when I'm at that fork in the road, trying to figure out which way to go, I always ask myself, what would 10-year-old Gresh do? Like, how would he approach this? So, young Gresh was a kid that sold potato chips on the playground. I got my parents to go to MJ Designs, which is a place that you can get beads and necklaces and all this stuff. So I joke they were my venture capitalists. So I was able to sell those necklaces and things like that. But fast forward a lot of years, you go through college and high school, not sure exactly what I want to do, who I am, what lights me up, what kind of gets me going. It was a lot of those kind of like first young stories that were kind of like my, my compass, I guess you can say, on like where I should go, my North Star. And, it was a windy road. I took a lot of leaps, and not a lot of the leaps happened in the way that I wanted them to happen. One of them I always joke and say, like, I landed on my Achilles tendon when I was starting, like, after school. I left a position. I said I was going to do this, but it's been a windy road for sure. And yeah, I just try to stay, very, very busy, I guess you could say.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your story with us.
What's a piece of advice you would give yourself when you first started out knowing what you know now?
I think that one of the things that I always say is that I wish that I knew when I was younger that success is not like a linear path. It's very much so a windy road. I always joke and say, because I love spaghetti, I always joke and say it's like a plate of spaghetti. And sometimes you have those ups and downs and those rounds through the process. And like I mentioned, the first time that after graduating school, I was in a position that I didn't really feel like was a great fit. I did a lot of freelance writing, and I said that, hey, I'm going to start doing freelance writing. I was living at home with my family, so I took, like I mentioned, that leap. And I literally tore my Achilles tendon about 45 days after I left the position. So insurance was out, all of those things. Luckily, I didn't tear it completely, but it put me in like a dark place, I guess you can say, because I took a bold move. Because all the people take bold moves, and all the people take bold moves. They work out how they want it to work, but that did not happen in my case. But as you start to learn later on, the people that are quote unquote successful do have those up and down moments. And a lot of times if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't be probably here talking to you all. I wouldn't have had the podcast, the blog, all those things. So it took some time, but later on you realize that, hey, just take those actions. You try to, like, if you're gonna fail, you try to fail small and try to make tiny bets. But those are the things that you start to realize that success is not something that's linear. It's something that's definitely a windy road.
Well, I think that's just such an important message, just in general, for all people, regardless of where they're at in their careers or their entrepreneurship journey, because it's just like looking at the curated feed on social media, the day in the life of an entrepreneur, a business owner. People only show the successes, they only show the good stuff. They don't show the really hard days that it took to get there. They don't show that, okay, even though this month's going really well, next month's going to tank, because again, like things change very quickly. And being an entrepreneur, you just kind of have to get comfortable with that uncomfortable of not exactly knowing how next month's going to go. And I think, yeah, you're right. That's just such an important message and something that I don't think entrepreneurs talk about enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just gonna say that, like, so many times, like, we forget about the human part. Like, even reading my bio, it's like I did this, this, and this. I checked off that, but it was bad. Like, there's some bad parts and things that happen. But I feel like I always say we forget about the human part of business and the human part of life, and we always we have imposter syndrome. Sometimes we don't think we're good enough. We're not sure if we're even supposed to be doing what we're doing. And I think it's hard to really like share some of those things. And I think it's so necessary though, because if people don't know that you stub your toe or you fall down and you can get back up, and that happened to people that are successful, then they won't even do that. So I love everything you all are doing, because I think it brings it to light as well too.
Yeah, I feel like there was so much synergy when I first chatted with you, Gresh, where I was just like, we're saying the same things on two different channels,
Yeah.
and it just needs to be put out there because I don't know the exact quote, and I don't know who to credit it to, but it was something along the lines of like, you don't have growth without hardship. Like it doesn't feel if you don't have the failure, if you do, I feel like what can you call success if you don't know what failure looked like, or if you don't know what the tough parts look like? Because usually when people don't have lots of bumps in the road, they tend to shit on what is happening in their life, and you look at them and you're like, you got it good. I could tell you lots worse things that could happen to you right now. Like, but if you don't have, and that's part of like, I think the fallibility of our country is we get stuck in that comparisonitis. Like, ah, dang, it looks like he's doing so good because he's doing all these things. And just, it's like I think we brought this up on your episode, or I saw this just about something recently of like, when people say like, oh, I hit the million, you don't know if it cost $2 million to get to that 1 million, but we brag on this big number, and it's like you have no idea what went into making that, because you can spend $2 million and make a million, afterwards, at the end of it, and is that really what you wanted to put into place as well?
Yeah. And it's such a huge thing. And it's so funny. I have this fail wall and I have quotes just like that. I actually was just writing something along the lines that failure and success go together. You can, I think I have a quote and I'm trying to remember what it says, but along the path of success, you have to pass failure.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't realize that, we don't even give ourselves permission to fail. Like if we're not good at
Right.
something, we throw in the towel. And like we're not realizing that in the same way, we're saying we are not going to be successful because we don't want to do things messy,
Mm-hmm.
do things imperfect, fail, stub our toe, and do all those things.
Absolutely. All right, last question before we throw you into the hot seat. What's your why? What is the underlying reason why you decided to become an entrepreneur and do what you do?
Yeah, I'm nervous now. I thought I was already on the hot seat, so there we go.
They're not that
But
hot. They're just
not that hot. Yeah, it's just a little
just a
warm.
little warm.
Okay. I mean, for me, like I said, 10-year-old Gresh, I was not always celebrated in going along that journey of like starting my business. I didn't touch as much on this, but like when I decided or was thinking about taking that leap, I felt like it was something that was a part of who I was. I looked at myself at a younger age and said, hey, this is, who I am and what that looks like. And no one's telling me to start a family newspaper. Nobody's telling me to do all these things. I just did them. And so I felt like that left a lot of clues as far as like who I was and what kind of lit me up. But like for probably about, I want to say 3-4 years after I graduated from school, I was laid off from a job. I was going to get laid off again. Like I mentioned, tearing my Achilles, couldn't find the right position. I would take jobs and look to be mentored. Bosses would leave. It was just chaotic. And the reason I bring all this up is because my why is a lot around like entrepreneurship and business. And what it is, I always say like entrepreneurship equals hope. And I think for me, my why, what really fuels me a lot is that I feel like so many times people are going through challenging, periods of their life and things are happening. People are getting laid off. People are unhappy at positions that they have. They don't think that there's a better way or there's an alternative. And a lot of times they have the skills, ability, and talent, but sometimes, they just don't know that this is an opportunity. So for me, like what fuels me more than anything else is by helping people to really start to understand that. And the best way that I can do that is, in the podcast is having great people like yourself on the show and just being able to kind of share that journey, but just knowing that, hey, you can do this, you can get to 6 figures or 7 figures, and it might be hard, and we're going to know that it's hard, but at the same time, it's possible. Because for me, when I started, I really didn't think it was possible. I wanted to do it, but I didn't really, really believe in myself to do it. And it was only because I was in that environment. I was in a networking group early on, and I was around other business owners where they weren't even saying, can I start a business? It was like, this is what I'm doing in my business. And being in that environment helped me out so much. So my way of doing that is using, that media to be able to kind of tell those stories, hopefully provide some hope and some opportunities for people to be able to shine in their own lives.
I love that.
That's
That
incredible.
is a quote that we are going to use. Entrepreneurship
Absolutely.
is hope.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that so much.
Yeah,
So
because I
true.
mean, I feel like that is a path that people go through. Like I was just shocked. I was like, when I started doing, side gig stuff, that I was like, wait, people gonna pay me
Yeah.
to do this? Like I fight tooth and nail in my day job to get paid to do this. Other people are gonna pay me to do this? Like
Exactly.
wow,
Like life can be different. It doesn't have to be the way that you were told it was supposed to be. Absolutely. Okay. Are you ready for the hot seat / lukewarm seat questions? They're really not that hot.
Okay, I think so.
I'm gonna start off strong though.
Okay.
So what is the best and or worst piece of advice that you've received in your career?
Best piece of advice. Let's see. There's so much great advice that I've heard. I think when I started the business, I think one of the people, his name's Dave Delavante. He basically said, and I'm in that nervous place. I'm like, I'm not sure if I'm gonna do this, if it's possible. I don't even know how to do this. And he was just telling me to kind of continue on. He said it's gonna take longer, but you'll kind of be rewarded by putting in that time and that energy, it's going to pay off in the long run. And I think that's probably the best piece of advice. You don't feel like that, when you're going through it. Like I mentioned, the imposter syndrome, I'm not sure if you're there, but I think probably the best thing that, he told me was to kind of continue on. He was like again, he was in that networking group. So this was like a whole different environment and conversations that were happening than outside of the world. So that was probably the biggest thing that really kind of helped me out. Probably on the flip side, the worst piece of advice, um, I don't know, probably was like on the exact opposite end of, not to do that. I think, like I mentioned a little bit, like especially like when I was getting started with the business, I heard all the reasons of why I wasn't gonna be successful. I should have waited because I was too young. I wasn't. I was living at home at the time, so it was like wait until this happens or that happens, and I felt like that was not really good advice because for one, like I think it creates this spirit of like, first of all, like whenever you start something, you can start where you are. You don't have to go from 0 to 60. You can literally start at 1 mile an hour and then start to build up from there. That was like one thing, but I think the second thing is that it creates this kind of like lack of taking action because you're always waiting for the perfect time or you're waiting for this or you're waiting for that. And luckily, like at that time, I had read a lot around people that had started stuff, and it's like, at what point is it a good time? And
Never
you start to
is.
realize
There's never a good
never a
time.
good time.
Unless you're independently
Exactly.
wealthy and you can hire a bunch of people to do shit for you. There's never a good
Literally
time.
any time's a good time for you then.
Exactly. So that's a little bit of what I went through. But I think when, especially around family, this happened around family, is like you feel like people love and care for you. It's like you don't want to see your kids stub their toe and fall. You love them so much, you don't want to see them struggle. But at the same time, with like we talked about, without the struggle, you don't succeed. So it's like that balance between those two things. But yeah, and you also have to take advice from people that are actually doing it as well too. If people are not doing it, then maybe that advice has more to do with them than it has to do with you.
Oh, that is
Yeah.
such a good one because, yeah, I think sometimes people run their mouths and I'm like, you have no idea.
Yeah.
You're not an entrepreneur. Why should I listen to you?
And the thing is,
I did watch a full season of Shark Tank.
I think everybody has an opinion, right, about literally anything in your life if you open that up. So, just choose who you listen to.
Yeah.
Probably the best.
Awesome. All right, I have our next question. So, with the founding of 3 different companies and many before, how do you balance the workload? Keep up your stamina and your energy because you don't feel like, to me, at least in my interactions with you,
Yeah.
you don't feel like you're like, oh my gosh, the world is on my shoulders and things like that. So, any tips that you would have for our audience for keeping things running smoothly and not going crazy, honestly?
Yeah, I still have my crazy moments, and no, I obviously like I have a team, so that helps out a lot. But I would think for me, everything I'm doing is pretty much in alignment. Like I said, that 10-year-old Gresh question I ask about everything, like what would 10-year-old Gresh do? And usually everything that I've been involved with has like some aspect of a why, and is like aligned with that. That helps out a lot. It's not everything, but it helps out like as far as like having fuel in the tank. But I am a big like routine person. So I have and continue to kind of refine like my morning routine. So I wake up earlier than I thought I would ever wake up to kind of get my day started. And I work out, I do all the things in the morning just to kind of get going. And I think that does help me out. Also too, like I remember when I first started my business, I would have this habit of not eating because I was so excited about everything I was doing. It was go, 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 go. And I remember I would get like headaches around like 2 o'clock because I realized I hadn't eaten, things like that. And fun side story is like I was doing a presentation. I remember when I started and I had my phone like on the table and the person beside me was also presenting. So we were like co-presenting about marketing or something. And my alarm goes off at 12 and it says eat. And he was like, do you have eat on your notifications? I'm like, yes, because I do forget those things like when I'm going. So it's just like, knowing yourself, like paying attention to those things. But I mean, I'm big on time blocking. Like I try to, keep my energy good with working out. I've gotten a lot better at sleeping. I wasn't a really great sleeper, but I've gotten a lot better over the years. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a combination of those things, but probably more than anything else, like there's a lot of alignment with the things that I'm doing, and like Fridays and Mondays are my podcast interview days. They're also my office hours. So that time is that time. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I have it as client meetings as much as possible. Any like prospecting things like that. So I try to keep everything kind of in blocks, I guess you can say. But I also know, like, especially for the most recent like kind of venture I started working on, the Blue Star franchise, like I told myself that I wanted to start before I was ready. And I knew that it was a better time to start, but I wanted to kind of just start planting those seeds at an earlier time. So it's also not beating myself up about like not checking off all the things on the list that I wanted to.
Awesome.
It's really smart. That's great. Yeah, I definitely can. I needed those tips. I do like that, making sure that you're in alignment with what you're doing. Because the self-care stuff always kind of falls to the bottom as well, too. So being able to balance that as well, I think is really important. Okay, so moving on to our next question. Because you work with entrepreneurs and you talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, I would like to know if there's like a common theme of something that fresh entrepreneurs struggle with, and kind of what is that, and like what do you do to kind of talk to them about that?
Yeah, there's so many things. It's so funny. Like I went through like a lot of last year. I went through like all the podcast interviews, and I would listen to like certain themes that would come up over and over again. And I started to come up with like pillars and things like that. But I came up with like 16 different themes, so I won't say all of those, obviously. But there's a lot of really great like information that people share. You hear it consistently and consistently. Like one of those things is the morning routine. So like when you hear it over and over again, and you're like, hey, it doesn't necessarily have to be a specific thing, but just like having that intentionality, even if it's 10 minutes at the beginning of your day, is going to set you up, better later on. I will say that one of the other kind of big things is that, making sure to I always say you don't want to forget about the human part of business, and the human part of business is like, as we know, like related to marketing, like understanding like why you're marketing. You're marketing to try to connect with another human to make them buy and all those things, but that self-care piece of like we're forgetting that we're human too, and so we have to also take care of ourselves, fill up our cup, and do all those things. It ends up being such a big thing to kind of increase that likelihood of success and you being able to kind of do those things. So those are like two things, but there's so many things and so many big nuggets that I've kind of learned from being on the show. And it just continues on. Like I think we sometimes we have this idea of success. Like we say that success has to be this because I see this person on Instagram, they look successful, they're doing all the success things, and I want to be that. But the reality is that we get to define that success, and we get to define like how we're going to go about our business. And I think that's one of the really big things that I love from doing all the interviews, because you can have somebody with the exact same business, exact same products and services, and they run it and execute it in a completely different way. I have somebody that, she's literally traveling all across the world while doing a marketing strategy business. So it's just like understanding that there's not one way to do business. I think that's probably one of the most valuable things, because if we step into that, then it gives us a little bit of grace to say that, hey, I don't have to know all the things. I could just do whatever it is that I need to do and just kind of go from there. So those are some of the things I kind of put away.
Awesome. Kind of staying in the same line of, having those conversations with entrepreneurs. What do you think is like one piece of advice that you consistently share with them? Like if you were just like, this is the one thing I want you to start with when you start your business, what would that be?
I would say the key is starting your business, and the big thing in the word that resonates more than anything else is start. And you know talking about that human part, like fear is a really, really, really big part of starting these ventures. And I think that a lot of times, if you're listening to podcasts like this, if you're around other business owners, sometimes you can get past that because you're not even thinking about that. You're thinking about the next thing. But I think there's so many people that have really great ideas, thoughts, books, whatever it is, that never see the light of day. I had somebody on my show very early on. She said the most profitable place in the world is not the mines or the banks or all these places. It's actually the graveyard, because people have ideas, thoughts, aspirations, goals, inventions, all those things that never see the light of day because they never ever start. So I think that as I start to like talk with more business owners and start to like even help people out from a franchising standpoint, it's just like there's so many people that never ever kind of get started. They never ever take those steps. So I would say the thing that I see, and the advice that I give is like, how can you take a step today that will get you closer to where you want to be? You don't have to write or create your LLC, have your logo in place, have the website, have 100 million bazillion clients and customers to get started. You literally start where you are. It might be having a conversation with somebody. It might be going to a score office, or, even just putting up a post and say, hey, I'm starting this business. But those actions all start to propel you into where you want to be. But it doesn't happen if you never ever take that step. So my advice would definitely be just start in some way.
I love that. That is the whole point, right? Of take the leap. You gotta jump. You gotta jump.
Gotta just do it.
Jump
Yeah.
in.
Gotta just start it. I love that. That's yeah. So many times we just get stuck in our own heads and things just have to be perfect. And yeah, if you just start and then go from there. I mean, that's how we all did it. I mean, Ashlyn, you and I both kind of similar situations. We were like, okay, we're sick of this. Let's just start doing it on the side and then see what happens. And there you are. So, okay. So I have one more hot seat question for you, and totally different line of thought here. What song has been on repeat, or what has been on your playlist lately?
So I'm a huge kind of J. Cole fan, and he has a song where I'm about to blow up, and I played that a lot. I still play that a lot, like, because I think it just kind of gets you going. I don't know. I'm a big Office fan. I don't know if you all have watched The Office, but Dwight has like this scene where he's like in the car, like him and Jim are going to do like this. I think this pitch to like the to sell paper. He's in the car and Jim walks out and Dwight's like, I'll be out in a minute. And he plays this song and he's like bobbing his head. And he's going crazy to get him hyped up. So that song was that for me. It's like a lot of times you listen to those songs and it puts you in the right place and right time. And I think you sometimes have to pour into yourself and get yourself ready, and hear like from yourself that you have that opportunity. And that's probably my J. Cole song that I loved. It played a lot, especially when I started, and still played it from time to time now.
That's incredible. I love
Thank
that.
you.
Yeah.
We're gonna create a playlist, I think, for season 2
Of all of the entrepreneur songs.
That's gonna be cool.
We've been asking, what people are into right now. So that's awesome.
Well, Gresh, we've come to the end of our questions. We want to say thank you for being on and give you an opportunity. If there was anything that we didn't cover that you really want to make sure that our audience hears, now is the time.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my favorite quotes is, don't tell me the sky is the limit when there's footprints on the moon. And I don't know who said that either. But the reason I bring that up is because, like I mentioned, like there's going to be a lot of haters, naysayers, people that say you can't do it. It's not the right time. You don't have enough money. You're not tall enough. You're not short enough. You're not the right complexion. You're not a man. You're not whatever it is. You're going to hear all these things. And I think what you have to kind of do is understand that there's many inventions, things that we're using on a daily basis that somebody said that that's not possible, that's not going to happen. So whatever it is that you're thinking about taking that leap on, just know that somebody might say that that's not going to happen or it's not possible. But take it for the three of us, like we probably have heard those things, but we took the leap anyways. And some, it's not always sunshine and rainbows, don't get me wrong, but we start to be really appreciative of like the process and things that happen. So again, if you think of doing something, make sure that you just take that leap and you go forward, because there can be some really phenomenal things that happen. And frankly, even if it doesn't go the way that you wanted to go, there's still like a lot of appreciation from trying and things not working out than never ever trying. So that's what I would probably just leave everybody with.
Awesome.
I love
Well,
that.
thank you so much for all the information you shared today.
Yeah.
Everyone, we will have all of the links to everything Gresh in the show notes from today's episode. Remember that you should review, like, comment on our episode, and also take a look at our online course, Take the Leap, both the same name as our podcast, and let us know if you enjoyed this episode or who you want to hear from next. So thanks so much, Gresh. We
Thank
will
you.
let you go and say bye for now.
Bye,
Bye,
everyone. See you
everybody.
soon.
Thank you for listening to the Take the Leap podcast. We hope you found useful takeaways you can apply to your entrepreneurial journey. Subscribe so you don't miss future episodes, and keep in touch and follow us on Instagram. If you have business questions, shoot us a direct message or leave us a comment. We'll try to cover it in an upcoming episode. And visit our website, taketheleap-today.com, for more resources like our online course that accompanies this podcast.